The thought that I'd like us all to think this morning is the thought of a long back. It's a thought we have quite a lot. We can picture that we have an energy that flows up through the spine, carrying us upwards into a long back. So when we think these thoughts clearly, they produce what we can describe as this so-called etheric energy. It's an energy that flows in our what we call the etheric body, our energy body. And if we think this energy in terms of it bringing about a long back, it will do that. It will manifest it in the physical. But also it can generate in us a very specific experience. It can give us more a feeling of self, a feeling of I, a feeling that we could locate in our heart center, a feeling that I am my own individual self, and that I have an independence in the face of external influences. I'm not dependent on other things, but I have my own independence, my own autonomy, my own sense of I. And if you think of someone who has a very upright spine, they engender much more that quality of independence, of self-sufficiency in comparison with somebody who might be kind of weighed down by other things that they don't feel they can stand up to in their own independent way. So our main thought then is long spine, and this can create the energy which gives us a feeling of independence, a sense of self. Would you like to come up to a standing position to start with? So we'll start then. Let's start before we do the sun prayer, just with a few positions like we often do, of hanging down, and then as we rise up, we'll come up very gracefully into this upright position where we picture our spine growing longer and longer and being carried up by this etheric energy. So feet firmly on the ground, legs firm, and just coming down and hanging into this forward, letting the breath flow, the neck and shoulders relaxed, and gliding gracefully upwards, picturing in your mind this long spine. You can picture a flow of energy, a stream of energy growing up through the spine and carrying it into a length. Let's do it a couple more times. Take the arms down, roll down. And this position is really important for just allowing a relaxation to come into the head, neck and shoulder area, and letting the breath gently flow. Gliding upwards, a long, long, growing, lengthening movement, rising up, breathing freely. Take the hands down. One more time. Rolling down. You can be aware of your spine in this position. Just gently lengthening. Gravity can help you a little bit, but think of that whole spine lengthening down. The head moves gradually towards the ground. The breath flows freely. The legs are long. Then gliding up once again in a graceful movement, and picture this flow of energy upwards through the spine, bringing about a long spine. And take the hands by your sides. So we'll come into the sun prayer. We'll stay with this picture of really growing long through the spine, as if the arms also an extension of the spine. Take your hands together. Take the arms up, growing longer and longer, right up through to the fingertips. Take the hands down, and again we can grow long up through the legs and down through the spine. Take your right leg back, growing into both your legs, and now growing up, long, long spine, arms, fingers. Then come into the plank, and again we can think long, as if the neck and the head are long. Knees, head down. Sliding forwards and growing up into the cobra. Think of your upper spine in particular as being long, so your shoulders aren't drawn up too much. Then come into downward dog, and once again, long back, bottom up high. Right foot forward. Coming up once again, growing up into this long spine. Keep breathing. Then the other foot forward. Legs lengthen up, going down towards the floor. Come up once again. Grow up into this long spine. And take the hands by your sides. Hands together. Take the arms up. So the more we do this, the energy flows up through the spine. Long legs, long back, flowing down towards the ground. Left foot back. Long legs as well. The long legs along the ground can help that long spine and arms. Then come into the plank. Again, a good length, neck and head coming off the end of your spine. Knees, chest and forehead down. Slide along the ground. Come up once again, finding this long upper spine in particular. Push into downward dog. Bottom up high, come into the triangle, a good lengthening. Left foot forward. Real length between the legs and a long spine upwards. Other foot forward. Long legs, long back. Coming up once again and grow and lengthen. Keep breathing. And take the hands down. This energy that can begin to flow through picturing and also through repeating the movements, comes from both sides. It brings a greater and greater elasticity. The more we repeat it, the more the energy builds up. The more the energy builds up, the more the length can come into the spine even more. Let's do a few more repetitions, hands together. Coming up, so we can gradually speed up as the energy helps us to lengthen. Coming down, long legs, long spine, right foot back, growing between both legs horizontally and then vertically upwards into this big flowing stretch. Coming to the plank, knees, chest and forehead down, and then sliding along the ground and curling into the cobra. Pushing into downward dog, this long legs, long back. Right foot forward, growing between both your legs, streaming upwards through the spine and through the arms to the fingertips. And then the other foot forward, growing up through the legs, down through the spine, right the way up and grow. Keep breathing, lengthening, and take the hands by your sides. Hands together. Coming up, lengthening right the way up through. Come down, looking down towards the ground. Left foot back. Lengthening through the legs. Lengthening up through the spine and arms and fingers. Come into the plank. Knees, chest and forehead down. Grow into the cobra. Push into downward dog. Lengthening forwards with the left foot. And right the way up through the back and through the arms. And then the other foot forward. Coming up once again and grow. Lengthening up. And take the hands down. Let's do one more round, really staying with this picture that we're up into a length by this flowing energy. Come right the way down, lengthening even more this time. Right foot back, the spaces between the vertebrae increase as you actively grow up in an elastic stretch. Come into the plank, knees, chest and forehead down, glide along the floor, curling right up long thoracic. Push into downward dog, your bottom right up high, long legs, long back, right foot forward, and then growing actively up, streaming upwards through the back of the arms. The other foot forward, lengthening through the whole body, coming, flowing up and grow and lengthen, lifting up your chest, arms by your sides, hands together, right the way up and grow, stretch actively up, come forwards, left foot back, long legs, long back, long arms, streaming upwards, come into the plank, knees, chest and forehead down, slide forwards, curling into the cobra. Triangle, good, long back, left foot forward, right the way up high, stretching and growing, and the other foot forward, and then come actively up and grow, right the way up, streaming up, and take the hands down. Let's come to the standing head to knee position. You all know this one. We think of long legs, and then from that, a long back streaming out. Take your feet together. Take the arms up gently, fingers relaxed, face relaxed to start with, breath flowing. And now you can lengthen up through the legs and stream outwards through your spine, looking ahead at your fingertips. Let the breath flow. Picture how this etheric energy flows along the spine, carrying it ever outwards into a greater length, looking ahead towards your light, relaxed fingertips as if the energy can stream out beyond them. Keep breathing, always growing further, growing longer and longer and longer. Relax again and glide back up, right up into the standing half moon, streaming upwards into that long stretch, right through the arms, straighten out the elbows, and then take the hands by your sides. We'll come to the cosmic prayer. You can stand with your feet and legs together. And the cosmic prayer again has this etheric energy which carries the positions from one movement to the next. Let's do the movements together. You can remain standing. I'm going to kneel down. So we take the right hand in the left, and then we flow outwards to this next position, the being ready. Then we can flow upwards like this flower, long back up to the flower, wide open to the light. Then we take the hands to the center and we move them out in front of us, and we take the hands out to the sides and relax. The cosmic prayer represents the journey, a journey of the development of a thought into its full flourishing and offering into the world in a realized form. We could imagine it also being like a seed that grows and germinates until it can flower and yield its fruit. And this whole process is carried by this flow of etheric energy. It doesn't have to be forced and contrived, but rather the movements can flow from one to the other if they're clearly thought out, clearly pictured. Right hand in the left, the beginning. Then comes the readiness to grow like a flower, long spine, wide open to the light. Turning to the center in a gesture of appreciation and this devotion to the world. The beginning, letting go of the old, lies in the readiness to receive a new thought or idea, growing like a flower with etheric energy, wide open to the light. Turning to the center in appreciation and devotion. We'll continue. Be aware of your spine. It can grow into a graceful length. The beginning lies into the readiness to grow like a flower. The spine grows long, wide open to the light, turning to the center in appreciation and devotion. Through the spine, we feel more upright, more sense of independence. Let's do the movement again. The beginning lies in the readiness to grow like a flower, wide open to the light, turning to the center in appreciation and devotion. And relax. The next one we'll come to is the sitting balance. This one is quite strenuous, but it's one where we can again picture a long spine, and it also focuses on the heart center. We have to lift up the heart. You can start sitting like this, taking your arms up above the head, and in this position, spine growing long, streaming upwards high. Just have your head naturally looking forwards, don't look up, so your neck just feels comfortable. Now, to make it more strenuous, if you want to, you can take your legs up. So your body might tremble. We'll hold it for about 20 seconds or so and let the breath flow. And just think of this long spine, despite the forces of gravity. You keep your long spine. 5 more seconds. And come back down. Okay, just sit up, just experience how when we do this, when we really have to rise up against gravity, we can almost feel an easier uprightness in the spine. And when we feel that sense of an easy uprightness afterwards, it's because the etheric energy is flowing more. It's carrying us upwards more. So I want to come next to the shoulder stand, which again requires this flow of etheric energy, but this time in an inverted direction. Let's start with a few rolling movements upwards. It's quite tricky in the morning, this one, so we need to warm up for it. We'll start with a few movements of rolling like this, just gently. You shouldn't feel any strain in your neck, but this is one way in which we can bring this etheric energy to flow again, by just bringing this repeated, the shoulders come down, the body rises up, and you can imagine that there is an energy flow carrying the body up against gravity. Do a few times, coming into a sitting position, picturing the movement while you're in the sitting position first, and then allowing it to express itself in the rolling up, free breath. And each time you repeat it, you can just think of the spine maybe coming a little bit longer, a little bit higher. Right, so we'll come to a next variation, which again can help this so-called ether flow. And this is when we now flow with the arms apart, away from each other along the ground. So this time I'll just show you. You can start by taking your hands to your back, then take one arm above your head and straighten out the other arm along the ground. And in this way, you can now imagine that your arms are gliding along the ground. They might not actually move, but even if you just think of the arms moving apart, you'll see that the effect that can have is to, I'm thinking of the movement along the ground, but the effect that it can have is also to help the growing in the spine. And then one arm at a time, you can change them around, flowing along the ground, flowing up, a little bit through the spine, never forcing, never bringing too much pressure to your neck. So when you're ready, first position is to come up like this with your hands on your back, and then take one arm up above your head and the other arm out behind you on the floor. And now you think of flowing through your arms in the two directions. And in doing that, you can start to get a slight sensation that your back begins to flow upwards as well. Should never force, always let the breath flow freely. One arm at a time, you can change them around. Flowing between the two arms. And feeling how that can produce an uprightness in the spine. Then you can support your hands onto your back once again. And then roll back down onto your mats. Right, it is much harder in the morning to do this. The spine is always stiffer. We'll do another preparatory movement, then leading into the actual full shoulder stand, which I'll demonstrate. Again, making use of the arms to bring this etheric flow into the horizontal, so that we get this counter movement of the etheric flow going upwards through the spine. The different directions help each other. So this time we'll come into this position, and you can slide your arms away from you along the ground. And this is what can help the spine to move upwards. Now, if you're able to, you can clasp your fingers, and then it can help you to draw your arms a bit closer to each other, and you might find that you can even come up a little bit further. But don't worry if you can't get your hands together. So it's through that movement of the arms along the ground that we can then find more of that uprightness and take the hands to the back, and then find a greater uprightness in the body. There's that sense once again of the body flowing upwards into the length, out of the heart center. So, and you're ready then. If you'd like to, again, if you feel it's too much strain on your neck, you can just come into a gentler half shoulder stand with your legs more at an angle. So when you're ready, come up like this, taking your hands onto the ground and sliding the arms away from you along the ground. If you're able to clasp your fingers together, you can do so that you get a little bit more leverage with the arms. But always keep the breath gentle, and picture how your whole body glides upwards through the spine and through the legs. Eventually you can take your hands onto your back and support your back with your hands. The legs come together, the feet come together, and you picture this etherically flowing movement. It's like the energy that flows up through a plant, the life energy, the etheric energy that carries the plant upwards, giving it that graceful uprightness. In this position, the body is mimicking that effect. Breath flowing freely. And then come back down again onto your back. Come up into a sitting position. And we'll follow the shoulder stand with the fish. And the fish, again, has this so-called etheric rhythm to it. It has this etheric rhythm in that one movement leads to another movement, leads to another movement, leads to another movement. The first of these movements is the flowing of the legs. The legs flow along the ground. The second movement that comes from that is the rising up of the chest and the rib cage, arching the back. Then the dropping back of the head is the third movement. One flows into the next, into the next. So to start with, you need to come onto your back with your arms right underneath your body, elbows straight, palms side by side on the floor. And then straighten out your legs so you're lying on top of your arms. The legs flow together. You can feel them flowing along the ground. Out of this flowing of the legs, you rise up on your elbows, bringing your chest right up, lifting your chest up high, lifting your rib cage up high. There's an arching of the back. And the third movement then is to gently drop the head right back to lower the top of your head down onto the floor. Three movements flow together. The gracefully flowing legs, the active lifting of the chest with the arching spine, and then the top of the head gently resting on the ground. Let the breath flow into the collarbones. And then finally you can come back down and relax again. Hug your knees into your chest. And then we'll finish with one final balancing position. This is the tiptoe pose. For the tiptoe pose, you need to come into this starting position with a really long spine. This is important. So we're not like this in the tiptoe pose, but the long spine is one of the very important characteristics of this position. You're standing, you're on your toes with your bottom on your heels, and the legs are together. They're quite firmly together. And now the thought, the picture of this long spine. In a graceful movement, we can lengthen up even more as we raise the arms. Picture the flowing of etheric energy up through the spine, continuing through the arms, going up beyond the fingertips even. And then we take the hands down to the heart center, which is where the etheric energy can accumulate to give us a sense of our own self, our own feeling of self, our own independence from external influences. And take the hands back down and relax. Just be aware of your long spine. The long spine is produced through this etheric energy which gathers as a result of our mental picturing. And when we have this long spine, it can give us a feeling of our own uprightness, our own sense of self, our own being independent from outer pulls and influences. Let's finish our session there.